country today, President Biden responded by announcing a big security assistance package. It will include more Javelin and Stinger missiles, as well as drones and thousands of other anti-armor systems. CNN is learning that Slovakia has agreed preliminarily to give Ukraine key air defense systems called the S-300. That one is a high-altitude area defense, missile defense. Let's speak now to CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. First, good to have you on. First, let's talk about the new assistance that President Biden promised today in response to the speech from Zelensky. Can you tell us what's in that package and what the effect will be?
Yeah, Jim, sure, absolutely. One of the things that you just mentioned is the S-300. So this is a picture of the S-300 on parade, which the Russians always like to do. The basic principle here is a tube that contains the rockets right in through this area, and it's a launcher. So this is what's called a transporter erector launcher, or a TEL, and that's designed specifically for the S-300. So the specifics of the particular variety of S-300 that the Ukrainians will probably be getting from Slovakia is this. It's called the S-300PS, and it has a missile called the 5V55R. What's important here is it's a really big warhead, 293 pounds. It has a range of 46 miles and can hit an altitude of 82,000 feet. That's important because that gets after the high-flying aircraft. So that's one of the weapon systems, Jim, that we'd be getting at here. The other one is a much more tactical weapon system, and this is called the AT-4. It's actually made in Sweden, and it is designed to provide, very similar to the Javelin, but it is designed to provide the kind of tactical help that the Ukrainians need as they go into these confined areas within urban areas, within cities. They can use this to great effect against armored vehicles, as long as they're not the most modern armored vehicles. Then you need a Javelin to really finish the job. But this is definitely a start in the right direction.
I mean, you look at the S-300, that's a different category of weapon systems. We've been used to seeing shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles, anti-aircraft missiles. That one is certainly more significant. But I do want to ask, because you're aware of this debate about whether the U.S. and NATO should enforce a no-fly zone, which has great dangers of a further conflict. But I was told by Representative McCall this morning that in his view, a combination of these air defense systems that we're seeing going in could achieve, in effect, the same goal. That Ukraine could, in effect, impose its own no-fly zone with that combination of systems. And I wonder if you agree that's possible.
I actually do. It's it's certainly kind of like the idea of a no-fly zone, but by any other name, right? And what you're talking about here, Jim, is covering the entire airspace of Ukraine. Now, the danger for this, or at least the weakness of this, probably I should call it more a weakness, is that this would only cover airspace if it's done in normal ways. But there are a lot of things that happen using standoff weapons. For example, when the Russians attacked the facility, the training facility near Lviv, right on the Polish border, they were using aircraft that were actually flying out of an area from the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov right here. Those areas are outside of normal Ukrainian airspace, and if the no-fly zone, or whatever we're calling it, it does not cover that, then it won't impact those kinds of events. And the Russians have been doing this quite a bit. They've been using standoff weapons and flying aircraft up to the limits of Ukrainian airspace and then firing in from there. They do the same thing with their ground-based artillery, and that's another aspect that they would have to cover.
It's a good point, because even if the U.S. and NATO were to take that step of a no-fly zone, there would still be that weakness, because you would have weapons fired from Russian territory or beyond that they would not have the ability to stop without entering Russian territory. I do want to ask, because the U.S. does say that the Russian advance has effectively been stalled, including particularly its progress towards the capital, Kyiv. General Mark Hertling, who I know you know well, and on this broadcast has said repeatedly that he believes Russian forces are reaching or will soon reach their peak effectiveness in Ukraine. I wonder if you agree that we're reaching something of a turning point.
Well, it's possible, Jim, but what I've noticed is that the Russians are bringing in new and fresh troops. The other thing that they're doing from a more tactical perspective is you're seeing more reports of scouts in and around Kyiv in different areas near where the Russian lines are. And the other thing is that they are also in areas reportedly more to the west, so a little bit further than what the maps actually show us right now. And one of the things you learn about modern warfare is that often the actual presence of troops is a bit different than what the maps tell you, and sometimes they're going to have scouting units out a little bit further, and the Ukrainians are encountering scouts that are a bit further out from these areas. So what I'm thinking will happen is that the Russians are going to try to move in as many troops as they possibly can, although there's a limit to what they can do, and they may try to do something with those troops. They're at least probing the Ukrainian defenses, and depending on what they find, that will determine then what happens next.
Does Russia have the ability with the force composed to control Ukraine? In effect, does it have the forces to not just cause trouble, right, but achieve control of the country?
Jim, I don't think so. I mean, as far as we know, the numbers are about 190,000 Russian troops. There'll probably be a few more that will come in from places as far away as the Far Eastern Military District out near Vladivostok, which is in the extreme Soviet Far East. They'll bring troops in from everywhere that they can, but I don't think they'll be able to muster the strength they need to truly occupy Ukraine. And no matter what happens with Kyiv, they're going to find that they're going to need a lot more troops, and the population is definitely not going to cooperate with them.
And the U.S. estimates conservatively that Russia has lost perhaps 10% of its total force to date, just in 3 weeks. Cedric Leighton, always good to have you on.
Thanks, Jim.